Okay. Hi. So I'm back with a little bit of music stuff to kind of. I want to show you a lot about how I've learned to do bass and to do jazz. Now, jazz in itself, you might know that I have a song called 251 coming out, and why do I call it 251? Well, it's the most important question to ask as far as when I started learning jazz and jazz structures, like jazz chord progressions. For instance, you have this chord progression right here. Let's set this to a whole note, and we're going to go 5, 5, 5, 5. Now this chord is basically pronounced like this. So, you can basically just lay your first finger across, and that is your 6th-string root right here, 6th-string A, and then your minor 7 structure over here. Okay, well that's your 2. So if I say this is A minor 7, now this gives you your 2, minor 2. Why does it have to be minor 7, and what else can you do to it? You can embellish. You can make it a minor 7 extended with, now you have an add 9. I think that's a 9. I want to say that's a 9. For reasonably certain that's an add 9. But if you can hear it in the background there. I can't really hear it, so hold on. But this is a bass of it. It's 4 notes. It's inverted, obviously. You have your, well, actually no, that's just a deeper root, but I think it has an inversion up top here. Now, normally an A minor 7 would on a piano, oh, I didn't add a piano track to this. This is going to be just kind of a little bit of a jazz rant, but let's take a step back and look at the 5 now. What is the 5? And then we'll talk about why it works. So this is your D, so if you have a 2, you go up to your major 5, which is actually a 4th above, a 4th interval away. So you have your 5 here and your 5 here, that's a 4th interval. Now, you add a different type of 7 to it. Now you're going to notice that this is a, well, it should be called a D7. Let's see what happens when I, oh, never mind, I did the wrong thing. So yes, this is a D7. Why is it 7? Why does it say a D7 no 5? It should be just a D7, but there are other ways to do it. What this is called is a dominant 7. Then a no 5 just means that you're not using your 5th note, which would be but you can add it. You can still add it. I think it's, yes, it's an A note. Yeah, that's correct. So then you can add it by barring across here and then putting these 2 up. But either way, it's a dominant 7, and the same structure is also built in a different way, but I can talk about that later. So it's a D7. But I used this structure that I just made here, this 5 up here instead of a, should be a 3. You can hear that tonality there. And the difference here, that is a D9. That's your 9. You say 7 or 9 when you mean dominant 7th or dominant 9th chord. There are also other extensions. But the important part is to know that this is a dominant 7 structure. You can build it with another 9 by adding I keep doing the wrong thing, but yeah, there you go. It's your D7 structure. And then you have another type of 7th chord that is commonly used. You have other 7s as well, but they're for different chords and different patterns. But this is for your 2-5-1 structure. You use the 7ths as they're related, because if you just use the straight minor, major chords, which they would be, you're pretty much just breaking down everything that matters. I need to turn off these notifications. You're probably going to be seeing these periodically, but I don't care. This is basically just a little bit of a jazz lesson with my favorite software. So you have an X here. This isn't played. Neither is this. I should add. But what happens then is you go for 4. Now, what did I just do here? I made a G7 major. So major 7 is what it's like, what it likes to be called. We call it a major 7. So now you have all the. Let's see if I can add the. We're just going to call it D7 no 5. Why not? That's just what I called it. I don't feel like fixing it. It's the same thing it always is. Now here you have 3 different types of 7s, and you go 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And then with this 4th note here, you can pretty much do anything you want. It's a turnaround. It's kind of like in blues where you have the 1, 4, 5 structure, and at the end you go back to your 5. So it's a turnaround like that, but with the jazz feel. Now the jazz turnaround has a different type of melodic structure to it because it's more like an improvise. It's a comping area where you just do something in key. Now, a lot of times you can add, well, in this case, what did I do for my song? I used 0, 2, 2, 1. That's your standard E, but you'll notice that's not in key, and I did that on purpose because then I could also take that. What would have been in key is if I made that a minor tonality, but using the major tonality takes it out of key. So you go from this, you're expecting to hear something. But then, I also took that chord tone, and then I switched it mid-measure from this to, that would be 0, 2, 0, 1. Make sure I got, yeah, that's a 7. So then I just added another 7 to it. It's an E7 now. So now you can just kind of see all of these chords and what they are. Now, that's just a basic jazz structure. But jazz also tends to have this A-A-B-A. So I could keep doing this, copy it, that's A, A, but then you need something different. You need 4 measures of something that sounds different, and then you go back after 4 measures to the repeat. I think I did that right, yeah, 4 measures. So what can we put here in the middle of these 4 measures where there's nothing, there's no sound, and then it repeats? Well, a lot of times what you can do is you can ascend your scale a little bit and use different 2 and 5 structures, or really just as you like. That's the whole point of jazz, is that you only have a few basic rules, and they're not really even rules. They're just be musical. That's really the only rule. Play in the same key, and if you play out of key, make your chromaticism sound good. And your chromatics are obviously your, or we can do that down like this, okay? So 3, 4, 5. It's a leading tone. This 4 here leads into your A. So that's your next bit of a walk, is when you're learning to walk the bass. Obviously this is only 3 beats of a measure. When you're learning to walk the bass of your chord, you want to use a lot of that chromaticism. So to lead into A, and then, and I did it again, whoops, to lead into B. So like, I'm sorry, that leads into D, see, that lands on D. But actually this is done outside of the measure typically, and then you land on it. So we can put a half note there. Now we complete the measure, or alternatively we can also insert, well, where did we stop? We stopped on E. So if we insert another measure, another note here, we can make that your E. You left off of your E, now you're leading back into the A. That's why the turnaround is so special in jazz, is because there are so many different ways to do it. You usually have this turnaround at the end of a musical phrase. That's what I did, and that's kind of what you hear a lot in jazz, is when you have that turnaround, it comes at the end of a musical phrase, which this whole page would be a musical phrase. So you started up here, you did this pattern, you did this pattern, you did some improvisation here in these 4 notes, and then your last 4 notes goes back to that same pattern. But what happens here basically makes your jazz song. I don't want to say that empirically, but generally speaking, your B is what separates the jazz tones away from it. So you do something personal to you here. So for my case, when I did this sort of structure, I wanted to go with that same idea. Now I just go from 5, that A root, and then I transposed it up a step, and then just made that a B major, or B minor 7, which is also in key. Notice that this is all in the key of G. Everything I'm talking about right now is in 1 key. It's just a generalization and a really kind of a case study on what works in the key of G. This does not. This whole phrase right here is not in key with G, because of this minor 3rd here that is wrong. It should have been a minor 3rd. But you can add a little bit more musical color to it by, I want to say, by changing the ear's expectation of what they're going to hear in key. Because all day you've been hearing this minor key here, the minor tonality, which would match what comes next here. Hold on. There's something coming here, so we can do that same thing that we just did. Oops, I did that backwards. 7, 6, 7, 5. So it kind of looks like it's a walk-up of a different chord. But what I did here is now this chord is in key. No, wait, no, we just did that dominant 7th we did here. Okay. Now what would be in key is less easy to touch with your hands, to kind of put your fingers on. That's not really less easy, but that could be in key as well, because it takes on a tone of E minor 7, which would be in key with G. But changing the expectation here leads to a different, I don't know, I want to say musical expectation being broken, which people are like, oh, that wasn't even new. Which is kind of what you want to try to go for in jazz. Is, oh, that's a good way to use those. So it comes out to be like this. Okay, well, so far we've started building something. But when I meant A, that means this structure is all your A. You can repeat this twice instead. And then this becomes your next musical phrase that sets it apart. So you do your 2-5-1 thing here, blah blah blah, 251 structure, just like jazz everywhere. Do 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 do. You know, I mean, it's pretty much every jazz song you listen to. You can hear it in Orange Color Sky. That's your one of your jazz standards there, but they do this into it. I was walking around, that's a chromatic walk-up, minding my business, went out of an orange-colored sky, kind of a lead back. Wonderful, you came by, and then that starts. All I can say is jazz is weird, alright? If you've gotten this far, you're actually intently listening, so any of my musings and ranting on the topic have become interesting. But I don't expect most people to go past this little bit here. They just say, oh, these 7th structures. But that's the thing about learning jazz, is you're learning to extend the basic chords you already know. Because let's face it, everybody knows, let's do power chords in the key of G. Dun 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 dun. Because everybody knows this guy. Everybody knows this guy. Now back up to your D, because that's truly and tremendously expectable. So that's 1, 4, 5. Okay, your root here. Then you have a fourth up, and then you have your dominant fifth. Dominant fifth happens everywhere in music. It's just that's why it's dominant. It's one of the it leads back to 1. So the obvious thing to do after you put a dominant 7th chord, which would be this, always has this structure, is the only obvious thing you can do next is to go back to your 1. Because when you hear, it wants to go back there. That's its home. So your 1 note, your key of G, what did I just do here? So, I was saying key signature. I should have known that was Control K. If you like using this software, you're also learning a lot about how to use it too. Notice you have all of the chords up here, and actually how it recommends you put your fingers on the fretboard to make that chord. That's why I love this software. It's just so comprehensive, and you can do so much with it, and you can make any sound you like. Like, let's modify the sound of it. What is it using right now? It's using a Jazzy ES standard, using the bridge pickup. I generally tend to prefer the bridge pickup. It has a little more twang to it. It already kind of predicts what you want to do. Well, let's do Control K. Put it all in G. Now it, because it broke off there and said only a single phrase was in G. But what we've done now is we've pretty much just kind of laid the chord structure for jazz. There's more to it than this, obviously, because this is just a very introductory lesson in jazz. And it just became jazzy stuff. All of these are just kind of experimenting with the basics of learning your 7th chord structures. Your 7th chord structures are ever dependent on the jazz sound. You need those 7ths because nothing else in music really uses the 7th. I mean, blues uses the dominant 7th all day, but everybody does that, seriously. The difference between, what was a dominant 7? Dominant 7 adds, so this is your fully extended bar chord. Your dominant 7 will occur here. This is your root. So we want to go up, there's your 5, and then your 7. So then that becomes a 3. Whoops, did the wrong thing there. I think that's it. Did I do that right? No, that's a minor 6. Whoops. I'm kind of confused here. I don't have my guitar in my hand, so I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. But either way, everybody in blues uses that dominant 7th feel. So we'll make it. Yeah, you can just fix this to make it the dominant 7. What did I do? No, you're supposed to go there. There's G. And then there's G7. Now, I was right. So now you have your G7. Okay, boom. Everybody has G7. Now we can extend this to a 7 just by doing the same similar sort of thing. You might know this better as this chord, which is just adding 3, 2, 0, 1. Yeah, everybody knows that's your C chord. But then you add your 7th here. Now here's your dominant 7 again. Yay, everybody does that. G dominant 7. Doom. And then you can put your dominant 7 on your 5th too, even though that's not actually in key. That's why it's called the blue note. I think I said that right. One of your dominant 5ths in there is your blue note. That doesn't actually exist in key, but it exists because you're using a dominant 5th that's out of key. which I think is what I just did here. You get that dominant fifth that's out of key. It's out of key, but it's based on your minor sixth, so that's not true about this. But like, if you don't understand anything about music theory, you've been lost a long time ago at this point, because this just became a lesson in basic introductory jazz. You're going to learn about it as you kind of go along with it. But I'm going to look forward to posting more and more lessons like this covering jazz. So I hope you just enjoyed wasting 20 minutes of your life with me. So what did we learn today? We learned that seventh chord structures pretty much make jazz. They're chord extensions. That's your rhythm anyway, and you comp over it. You do instrumental improvisation over those things, and that pretty much makes your jazz. It doesn't really get much simpler than that, guys. So, bon voyage, and safe travels into your music career. Take care, guys.